Welcome to Humanizing Data Analytics for the Individual and the Team, a live interactive event between FourthBrain and DataChat. Backed by Andrew Ng's AI Fund, FourthBrain helps you start the next chapter of your career in machine learning. Our cohort-based course community helps you fill knowledge and skills gaps so that you can build awesome data-centric AI products with industry-standard tools. We believe in building by doing, and so we've asked today's guest, as the CEO and co-founder of DataChat, to show us hands-on how DataChat is making data science easily accessible and usable by everyone. As always, before we meet our speaker, let's meet each other. Our growing community is global, and you never know what connections you might make in the YouTube live chat at the event today. Let's share a little bit about ourselves in the chat. I'll start. I'm Greg Loughnane, the head of product and curriculum at FourthBrain, and I live in Dayton, Ohio. What job do you do, and where are you located? Let's keep those intros coming in the live chat as we get started. DataChat AI is a conversational, natural language data analytics platform that recently raised a $25 million Series A funding round to build out its platform using a unique approach of AI plus BI equals CI to drive analytics to the next level. In other words, artificial intelligence plus business intelligence equals conversational intelligence. Today, we'll hear about how CI, or conversational intelligence, addresses a key problem for business. Collecting data is easy, but making data-driven decisions is hard. We're excited to share that we also have a special offer for the FourthBrain audience. The first 100 who sign up at the link that we'll drop in the YouTube live chat below to try out DataChat can do so for free. A quick note on process. We'll hear from our speaker, who will present the big ideas behind DataChat's conversational AI platform, and then we'll get into a live interactive demo. I'm also happy to announce that we've got Rogers Jeffrey, co-founder, and Amos Kendall, director of product, who are also available to answer any questions you have directly in the YouTube live chat as you're following along or as you're trying out the product. Following the demonstration, I'll ask a few follow-up questions and we'll open it up for any Q&A that you all have. And don't forget to leave a comment, like, and subscribe. With that, I'm excited to give a warm welcome to Dr. Jignesh Patel. Jignesh is the CEO of DataChat and professor at the University of Wisconsin. Dr. Patel is a serial entrepreneur, and his past companies have been acquired by Twitter, Pivotal, and Teradata. He was the chief scientist of Pivotal from 2015 to 2016. He is also an active investor and has served on the boards of both startups and public companies. Jignesh, welcome. Take it away from here.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, FourthBrain, for having us here. And thank you, all of you on YouTube, whether you're watching it live or going to watch it later. Really want to say that this is the start of a conversation we hope we are having with you between your data and DataChat, and want to get you to that next level of proficiency with ease of use. So I'm going to jump into what DataChat is all about. Most of the time today is going to be spent on a demo, but I wanted to give you a little bit of a background about us, who we are at DataChat. I'll take about 5 minutes or so doing that so you can understand where we come from as we go into the product. So about myself, I've been working in the area of data for over 25 years. I'm not going to go through this list over here, but suffice to say is this is my 4th startup. The others have been acquired by some big companies. One notable one was the startup we built in 2013 that was acquired by Twitter. It was a real-time streaming platform, and all of real-time services at Twitter run on that platform worldwide today. I had been working in the area of data platforms built multiple data platforms for many, many years. And then in 2017, I wanted to step a little bit outside data platform and start to look at what happens to data once it leaves the platform and end users like yourself try to make sense of it. So I came back to the University of Wisconsin, where I'm a professor. I'm on leave there right now, running DataChat with a team of about 50 people here in Madison and in the Bay Area. And in 2017, when I came in, I found Rogers, who had just come in from Columbia with a master's in computer science and had come to Wisconsin to do his PhD. And I pitched him a crazy idea of how do we make data science accessible, what was starting to be called as citizen data science. And we really wanted to reimagine that. So we wrote a paper in 2017 on how to democratize the data and go from data to insights to a conversation. And a conversation is not by writing code, as a lot of you probably do in Python and SQL. You can do that too. But we want to make most of that code writing be trivial. And as you'll see, put that in a visually immersive environment where you at times aren't even feeling like you're writing code, but really behind the system is writing the code for you. So we then pulled in a founding team. Wisconsin has a long history in data. So we pulled in people from both computer science and statistics, and off we went, where the details here are not that important, as Greg mentioned. We really got going in the middle of the pandemic, where in 2020, we raised our seed round. A year later, we raised our Series A round. And now we are bringing the platform to the market. So I'm going to tell you what we do. So this is a problem that Rogers and I started to see, is what we call as the last mile of delivery in data analytics, right? So you, the user, who is at the end and is charged with running the business or getting the business to that next level by getting non-trivial insights from data. There are lots of tools today that say, if I've got a little bit of data, I can draw a quick chart on it. If I've got small amounts of data, I can do stuff with it. That's not really what you need to get deep answers from that data. Right? And so data science was just starting to become popular. And data science is a method, a systematic scientific method for you to interrogate the data in very precise ways so you can find that answer. So the first thing we notice is that the entire ecosystem, even the enterprises that could buy the best tools and hire the best data scientists, is that there wasn't a single place where they could do this type of journey. And certainly nothing was available for people who weren't 5-star Python programmers. Right? So you'd have all kinds of tools. And the minute you had to say, as a business unit, if you wanted to get answers to, for example, why are my customers churning, or why is my finance trending in a certain way, unless you had a predefined widget, like a dashboard built to answer a specific narrow version of the question, for you to create something by yourself on the fly to ask root cause of what if analysis was really hard, right? The answer was go and find a data scientist or file a ticket with that team, or go and find consultants to go do that. So very fragmented. So what we wanted to do is have a complete tool belt that's available to everyone, regardless of their programming skill. Even if you're a programmer, we want that tool belt to be easier for you to use, and build that all in a single platform that we built from ground up, right? So all integrated. It's not like saying, I've got a visualization tool now, I'm going to slap in some ML and have an awkward integration and interaction between that. So the human is at the center of everything that we do. So very human-centric. The best gift that you can give us as a product is the gift of time. So if you give us time in a platform, we want to give the most out of that little time that you spend with us. And the completeness of this tool set, that's how we started to look at data science as a tool set. And so if you imagine in the physical world, if you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. But obviously that's not enough, right? You may use a hammer to put down a screw, but that's not going to work. That's not going to hold. That's not correct. It's actually going to be broken from day one. So what do you need in a tool belt? In the physical world, you need a hammer, you need a screwdriver, you probably need a saw. Those three are quintessential primitive tools that you need to do something in a complete fashion. And of course, you need the power version of all of that stuff as you get to that next level of sophistication. And that's really what we saw, is that what's that tool belt for that self-serve deep data analytics, whether you want to call it data science or conversational intelligence, how do you get to that next level? It's like you want people to be able to discover things easily, to visualize things, to collaborate, because data analytics, data science is a team sport, to be able to wrangle data, right? Data is never clean. Even if it comes from a warehouse, you have to clean it, you have to understand it, you have to get it in the right form for the task at hand. And of course, you want to have the power of machine learning automatically available to you so that you can do things without having to constantly keep up with algorithms that are coming out or learning how to write code in the right way. You just want these things available to you. And of course, you want to do this at a reduced cost, right? Especially when you're connecting to cloud databases. So that's what DataChat is. I'm going to go into the demo in a couple of minutes, but keep your questions and conversations going on YouTube as we go through this. The challenge we want to solve in DataChat that we are solving today is the lack of skills gap. Even if you're a Python programmer, getting to that 5-star Python programming experience, and Python's not enough today to really do things with data. You have to be a 5-star Python guru and a 5-star SQL guru, and that stuff never ends. You learn and everything keeps moving. So regardless of your skill set, whether you are a beginner Python person or you are someone who's done more, we wanted everything that is easy to do simpler, right? We want to give you that complete tool belt. We don't want you to use the wrong tool. We want to have that tool belt be complete so that it's all there in one place and you're not trying to awkwardly globber together something from one place to the other. And the best gift that we can give you back is the gift of time, right? Simple things like validation of data, understanding, discovering what's in the data should be trivially easy. Machines should do that. Humans shouldn't spend their time on simple things like that. So it's all part of this human-centric process. And the process that the data takes from start to the end should be frictionless, right? You shouldn't have to talk to 4 different teams, 5 different people. It should be as seamless as possible. So human-centric, completeness of the data journey, and based on the scientific principles is what DataChat is. Okay, I've bored you guys enough with slides. Let's go to a demo to see how we make that real. So hopefully you can now see DataChat. It's a web app that services up, so you can access it from anywhere. No installs needed if you're using a SaaS product. And we are inviting the first 100 of you who fill up a form to go and register and you try out DataChat for yourself. So here, I'm going to start by looking at a really simple data set. So imagine you're in this situation. Last year, the US government, as part of the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, made loans to a lot of restaurants. And you want to take this data and play around with it and interrogate it from a data science perspective. So we're going to do that. So I've downloaded the data, I've logged into DataChat, and I'm going to take that file that I have and upload it into the system. So here I drag and drop, pull up that Excel file, and upload it into my DataChat account. Now, of course, we connect to a rich variety of different data sources. So we can connect to databases, we can connect to other forms of structured data that you have. DataChat is for tabular data. So I want to set that expectation, right? So it's in that BI space where you have tabular data, but the data could come from anywhere. Okay. So we're going to start our work. We're going to start this data science journey in this human-centric, visually immersive environment by starting a new session. Right? So instead of opening up a Jupyter notebook or a SQL UI, you're going to open up a session. Right? The main tools, your tool belt is here on the left. We're going to start by loading data. And of course, the file that I've loaded is right here. As you can see, I can connect to databases and stuff like that and pull data from there too. I'm not going to go there today, but just want to emphasize the point that you can pull data from a rich variety of sources. So here I'm going to take that Excel file. And I know some of you are interested in what's happening behind the scenes. So I just popped up this interaction window that's firing up that stuff. It's starting to work on the data, pulling all of that data. As you can see, it's going to do a lot of automated mundane work that you would normally end up having to do. So it's reading through that file. It's actually going to go through a whole pipeline to say what's in this data. I'm going to try and understand all the columns and the different types. As you can see, type inferencing is happening right now. If it finds something that looks out of line, it will flag it as a bad record. This is a relatively clean data set. But even the simple task of loading the data from something like a CSV file is going to go through machine learning that's going to be employed to go and do that type of analysis. So this data is loaded. As you can see, there are two data sets that we have. The main file here is the restaurants PPP data set, and that has 100,000 rows. And I can look at all the different columns that are in there and get a very high bird's eye view of what I'm working with. I'm going to click on this, and that takes me to the main DataChat screen, which is, as you'll see, is designed to be very familiar to you and hide the power of all the complexity of the tool sets under the cover. So what's the most familiar way of looking at data? This visual way, right? We're all familiar with spreadsheets, but spreadsheets don't scale. So imagine you have a database with 1 billion rows, that'll all show up here, right? So I've got this tab over here that says, these are the two data sets. And I can start to look at this and say, here's my first row in the restaurants PPP data set that I just loaded. It's a restaurant in Portage, Indiana, that was granted $70,000 and a bunch of other attribute information associated with it. Was it used to cover debt? No. Was it used to cover food? Yes. And all kinds of additional information associated with it. So I can get comfortable with this data in the most innately human familiar way, which is in this tabular form, right? I can browse through that, right? Now I'm actually going to start doing something non-trivial and deeper. So you can think of DataChat, your tool belt, as having a bunch of skills. And those skills, just like Alexa has skills, you say shop, they trigger certain actions. That's really what it's going to do. I'm going to start my conversation by saying, hey, please describe this data for me. And I'm going to do that by simply invoking that describe skill. And what's happening behind the covers is that that skill is getting converted into appropriate code. Might be a little bit of Python code, might be a little bit of SQL code, might be a little bit of JavaScript code, all of that. It doesn't matter to you. It's just like when you ask Alexa for something, you don't care how it gets done. You just care about what is the output that gets produced, right? So it's not how is that action to be carried out that's important, but what is that action and what is that result, right? So if you think about, like, as a programmer, when I'm writing Python notebook, I find myself spending a ton of time battling with the code, the mechanical intelligence of code writing, but that's not really what the intelligent human part of me brings to the table in that problem solving. The intelligent human part of me is like, what's the next step that I need to do? And we trivially make that easy for you in DataChat. So here is a high-level summary of what's in this data. For example, I can look at the grant amount and say the average grant amount is $283,000. The minimum is $1,000, and so on. I can also look at other information such as women-owned indicator. There are 2 values in there, and I can go dig into that a little bit deeper. And I just clicked on that button, and the right visual chart powered by machine learning and interrogation of the data all happened in real time here and came back to you. So high performance execution of these skills is a core part of the platform, because we know you are in the loop, human in the loop interaction, fast interactive response time is critical to us. So as we can see here, there are larger number of restaurants that were not owned by women, right? That no column was checked compared to the women, right? So it's a little bit of an imbalance. It's not 50-50. It may be a little bit different than what you and I could have guessed earlier. So before this, you had said, what's that breakdown? We might have different guesses, but now give a precise description of what that data looks like. We are getting started with the data journey. All along, we are producing artifacts. A chart is an artifact, a machine learning model is an artifact, a report is an artifact. And you can take any artifact like this one over here and publish them to something that is called an insights board. And we'll talk about insights board later, but I just took what I have here. I want to do something else with it, and I just posted it, right? It's just like a picture board where you can put all the interesting stuff that you find. And I'm going to go back now to that next level. I really want to look at the distribution of these grant amount across these different states. So I'm going to take that next step deeper down. At this point, I'm invoking skills. You might ask us, hey, DataChat, how do we find out all the stuff that we can do? Are there self-onboarding resources? And the answer is yes. We have plenty of help available. You could even sign up for support hours with us once you have a login access on a platform. And if you need someone will come in and help you with that. You can look at a tutorial that walks you through the different ways in which you can get started. It's inline. Or if you wanted a richer set of documentation, you can go in over here to a doc site, and that tells you here are the different ways. Here's the introduction to DataChat. If you're working with data, how do you use queries? How do you visualize data? Right? So there's a rich set of documentation. So for example, if you want to load data from a database, here's how you set up a connection in DataChat. Here are the databases that we support right now. We are always adding more. Here's how you go about connect a SQL query from a database that you have access to and bring that into your DataChat session. So rich documentation is available. All of that is part of that. And of course, we are here to help you if you need help through our support services. So here, I'm now going to go and ask the system to go and compute something on this data set. So typically at this point, you might have reached into your SQL toolbox and said, well, now I need to start writing a SQL query. But as you can see, all of that, the previous stuff was a little bit of Python code plus perhaps JavaScript code to visualize that. Here's SQL code, but to you as a user, you don't have to worry about that. You're just invoking skills and having that conversation with your data. So I'm going to start and say what I'm interested in. As you can see, everything is aiding you, right? We want to give you back the gift of time in the smallest amount of time, give you all, allow you to express what you want of the system. So I'm just simply asking what's the total grant amount for each state. And you'll see down below, a little sentence got constructed. Below the covers, DataChat has a powerful no-code language called DataChat English. And this is effectively a line of code. It's a syntactical language, but its interesting property is that even if I didn't tell you this was a line of code, and you read it, you know what it does. Compute the total grant for each state. So it's a unique language, DataChat English, where it's a WYSIWYG no-code language, which we think is the first of its type, where I can give you a bunch of sentences in DataChat English that constitute a recipe for an answer that I've presented to you, and you can intuitively understand what happened. Okay, and we'll come back to this as to why this forms an underpinning for you to create things in DataChat so you can continue that work, continue that conversation with yourself at a future date or with others in your team through this powerful mechanism of DataChat English that is always attached to everything that you do. As you see, I didn't type this in, but it automatically gets generated. As I said, we'll come back to it in a second. So I did this below the covers. A SQL query got fired up to an engine, and I get my result back. As you can see, it opened up a new tab, right? So that same tabular view of interacting with the data is there, and I can go back to previous tabs if I needed to. Here, what I want to do instead is to plot that. Rich visualization is not globbed on. It's innately part of that human-centric experience in DataChat. So I'm going to say, hey, what does this data look like? And I can see a quick chart. I really want to plot that as a bar chart. So I switch over and I really easily compose that. I know rich visualization tools are available in other places too, but here it's integrated with all the other things. We'll see machine learning in a little bit. You've already seen SQL. You've already seen a little bit of data wrangling. All of that comes in together. Okay. From this, we can see that California was allocated a little shy of $6 billion, right? As you can see, the bar is really high. Now, lots of all these other states are tiny, and New York is the second highest. At this point, you could be having a conversation with your team or your friend, and they might argue that this seems unfair. These two are democratic states, and they've nabbed most of the grant dollars. This just seems like it's a runaway machine going unfairly in one direction. Okay, we find ourselves in that world where we have lots of data, but how do we make sense of it? And not just we make sense of it ourselves, but how do we make sense of it together as a team in a way that we have a common fact-based way of understanding what the data means? Okay, so we have this chart. I like this too. I'm going to keep it around. I want to go paste it. So I just added it to that same insights board, my storytelling mechanism that I'm building in the background. And so I go do that. Here, I'm going to pause a little bit. All along, as you work with DataChat, as you can see, all the interactions are getting generated in these blue sentences. These blue sentences are really DataChat English, right? They constitute a recipe that's proof of work for everything that we've done. Think of it as an RPA mechanism for an intuitively, visually immersive, human-centric way of interrogating your data. right? And all of the information that you're seeing, all of the products that have been produced, these artifacts, they're all available up over here. Okay. So it's this Rogers and I, when we started DataChat, we wanted to completely reimagine notebooks. Do all the stuff that you do in notebooks, basically do data science, but do it in a simple way where you're spending most of your time in doing the work rather than the mechanical part of writing code. You can still write code. I'll talk about that in the end, but we want to take all that mundane stuff away from you and give you that gift of time back. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is enrich this data. We're going to enrich this data. There's another piece of information that we pulled in when we loaded that Excel file. This had come from the US Census data. It was in that Excel file that we uploaded and started this data journey with. And that is information about each state, the population, the taxes collected, and the party to which the governor of that state at the present moment. We're going to take this data product that we've just created, this artifact, and now we're going to combine these things together. The skill is extend. It'll guide you through all of that. It says, you're looking at this computed result here. You could join that with that state and population stat, that other data set that's in your session. If you do that, it's going to join on that state. So this is basically, you don't have to be a SQL expert. If you try to do this in SQL, to get it correct, you'd have to do a left outer join. And so you can start to see that even simple stuff of correcting things require a sophisticated way of understanding things in SQL, and you have to do it as left outer join because there is DC here, which has nulls, and you don't want to take that out. It doesn't have representation in that state and populations data set. The part of that information is missing, and if you just did an outer join, you drop stuff from one side, which you don't want to do. So we take care of that very naturally. So extend is a more natural skill. I want to combine two pieces of information. We'll actually look at the structure of the two data sets. And then if it looked awkward and if you try to do something that was off, we'll tell you about that. But by default, the mechanism is more natural. I want to extend A with B, and we do the right thing. Okay, if you're trying to do this in Excel, you'd be trying to do this with VLOOKUP, and if the data is large, you won't even be able to do it in Excel, right? Or you could try to do as a pandas merge or some other stuff. But again, the semantics are very programmatic in all these environments. They're made for programmers where there are all of these details, but not natural and intuitive and correct by default, right? The default path has to be the right path. And that's what all the skills in DataChat are designed to do. Okay. Now I've got a rich data set. I could now go and interrogate this and say, I may, for example, go back to describe again and say, hey, in this data set, give me a high-level summary so I can start to see 51 states are represented. The taxes collected has a distribution. If I want to look at that, I can go take a look at that and see what that distribution looks like. But maybe what I want to do here is come back to this question of, hey, was this fair, right? You remember this chart? I can pop that up really easy to take a deeper look at it, right? California and New York, was this fair? So I can go now. I've taken these few steps. I can go to this new data set that I have and ask the system to go and analyze this. It's a really simple gateway AutoML skill. It simply analyzes the total grant amount. And what's happening, as you can see, for those of you who are ML experts, is we're actually automatically building a variety of different machine learning pipelines. For each pipeline, we are feeding the data in, dealing with any missing values, doing the imputation as needed, doing any appropriate transformation of the data that is needed, fitting it into appropriate algorithms, right? We'll raise a whole bunch of ML algorithms, in this case, regressor algorithms for those of you who are interested, do hyperparameter optimization for each of the pipelines that we created, and give you back a high-level perspective based on Shapley value analysis for what's the macro level understanding of what's happening in this data. But if all of that didn't make sense, you don't need to make sense of that. All you need to do is look at this picture, which says the impact on the grant amount, about 40% of the impact on the grant amount is the population of the state. The second big component is taxes collected, and the governor's party, whether it's a democratically ruled or Republican governed party, is important. It's not non-important, but it's a third tertiary component to this. So that's all you need to know. even if you didn't know deep ML related stuff. If you care about deep ML stuff, we'll produce you a pipeline report. We'll give you the details if you need to. So as you can see, all kinds of fun stuff happen in the imputation step and in the auto binning step. If you're so interested, the taxes collected was actually binned to improve the quality of the modeling power that went into that. Similarly with population, there's a whole bunch of stuff that happened. If you're really interested, you can go take a look at a pipeline. That's no problem, right? But more importantly, we'll also produce you recommendations based on what we just learned, right? We just learned that these are the three dominant factors. That's the macro picture. So the deeper answer is, what does that mean in terms of what we at DataChat call a data native explanation? And this is something that we've invented. And we're really proud of the research that we have done in that. So what we'll do is we will learn from what we just learned. We'll use generative programming techniques to take the output of the machine learning as data, feed that into a module that then automatically will create a DataChat program to interrogate using a secondary set of machine learning techniques to bring out the pattern over here. And you don't have to understand all of that stuff either. You just have to click on these buttons here. We recommended 5 charts, and I clicked on the first one, and that says, here is how I take you to that answer one level deeper in a data native picture, right? Previously, we learned that population is important, but how important? What's the precise relationship? That's uncovered here in the second level of recommendations that came in from DataChat. Visualization and rich visualization is a core part of what we do at DataChat. So as you can start to see, here is the population, the total grant amount versus population. The bubbles are sized using the taxes collected. So bigger the bubbles, like this is California, paid 4.7 billion and 100 billion in taxes. And as you can see, that bubble is higher, and the color corresponds to the party. And this is rich, live, interactive visualization. So I can look at just one portion of it. And you can see what the dominant patterns are. The grant amount increases as the population increases, which is the first component. Bigger bubbles are at the top, saying states that paid higher taxes generally got more grant dollars. But you can also start to see the yellows are often lower than the blues. So for example, if I zoom into this part, and again, natural, intuitive, I just zoomed into that. Rich visualization is not an add-on. It is inbuilt. It has been part of our obsession from day one. We can see this is Florida. This is New York. Very similar in terms of population, right? They're both between that 20 and 22 million population boundary on the x-axis, but quite far apart on the grant amount axis, right? New York, the grant amount was 3.6 billion for the state's from the state's revitalization fund, and just 1.3 for Florida. So we now know that there is a pattern. There's a stark difference in how the states behave. You can be very precise about that. We can argue about whether that was fair or not, or whether the Republican states or restaurants in there just habitually did not apply as aggressively to the grant amount, but we can't deny the facts. The facts are as clear as day that the bigger driver is the taxes collected and population, but there are stark differences across states. And we can go and interrogate them, whichever corner of the space we are really interested in, right? You can see the blue over the yellow happening all over the space here, even in the smaller end. This is New Hampshire, and this is there. So you can see that type of change happening all across. I can take this, publish that too. I can create all kinds of reports that I want of this data set. And if I wanted to create, for example, a pivot table, I can do that too. I'm just quickly gonna show you what some of that might look like. You could basically say, I'm gonna drag this by governors and the total grant amount, and I want to do some counts. And you can go create various types of pivot records and stuff like that. So you can say here, let's do the total of the grants across the different states and population. You can create these pivot reports. Okay, I'm going to switch over to doing something else for a little bit. I know I'm more than halfway over time, but we're going to continue this journey with DataChat. So really what we've done is allowed users to now go and interrogate the data. As you can see, we spend most of the time on doing the stuff that we as humans are really well versed at, which is asking, doing that human intelligent part of, what's the next question? What's the next step? And we did that. We had that conversation with the data. This very intuitive skill-based stuff. You can do things like take columns and you can clean them, specify the patterns that you want. You can create new columns. We'll do one of those before I move on to other aspects that I want to show you in the short amount of time that we have. In this data set, for example, if I wanted to create a new column, let's say it is an expression, and that is the tax to population ratio. Let's go into that, and we'll say this is taxes collected by the population. I'm just interested in what that looks like. I can create a new column, right? So I just created this new column. I can go and plot that. So for example, I might say, hey, what does that look like for the states? And I can start to go and make all kinds of really fun visualizations that I might want to play around with this. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do next is save everything that I've done and save my work. Okay. So as I save this work, I saved it. I was in a mode in which I was also sharing that with others. And as you saw, that's kind of what I said. Hey, this workflow, the sequence of steps that we just did is called a workflow. And as you saw, when I saved it, actually gave me a high level picture of say, hey, here's all the stuff that you've done in that last 30 minutes, right? You started by loading the data, then you interrogated that, you did a couple of describes, you did a compute, then you did an extend, then you ran basically a couple of the describes on the stuff that was produced, the output of extend, then you ran machine learning, you looked at a preview of the pipeline report, and so on, right? So all the steps that we did is recorded. And here's the interaction between those steps, right? So this preview was dependent on the analyze, which was dependent on the extend, and so on. So you get a bird's eye view of all the stuff that you've done. But I've also saved everything that I have, and I've shared that with other users, Nate and Rogers, in my organization. And I can share them very easily in other forms too. So I'm going to end my session here for now and go back to where we started about 20 minutes ago. So we had started a new session, but there are other things that you see in the DataChat home screen. One of them is the workflow. This is a workflow that we just saved. And I can take that workflow and share it with others in my organization. I'd share it with just these two. I might go and share it with Amos and add him to that. And when I do that, everyone whom I've shared with not only has access to the work that I did, but they have the ability to go reproduce that work on their own and do things with it. So as you can see here, the preview of what we see here is all the steps that were carried out to go and do that entire session. And this is where the power of DataChat English becomes really, really important. Everything that I create, a workflow, an insight board, a chart in an insight board, is attached with a proof of work. These are the charts, for example, I attached and put that in an insights board. If all I wanted to do was share this information with you, I can certainly do that. I can go to the sharing stuff and select whom I want to go and share this information with. I was putting up a whole bunch of information in here and realized I really don't need this. I could go and remove that. I could go rearrange my charts here. I can add rich annotation here, for example, saying, did CA and NY. If I can type while I speak, that's a skill I'm still trying to master. Grab more than their fair share. And I can do that. Everything is rich. I can place them wherever. We don't want to put any restriction in your storytelling ability when you create these DataChat insights board. So you can overlay these sticky notes anywhere, and I can save that and I can share that. Let me go back now over here to the insights board and dig a little bit deeper into that science part of data science. This is a chart that you haven't seen before. You're seeing it for the first time. As you can see in this chart, there's a little note that says the yellow line is a projection of the real GDP based on trends before 2020. And this is what would have happened to that KPI if the economy had continued on trend. And so this is literally looking at data that was pulled from the St. Louis Fed. The blue line is the actual GDP. The yellow line is what happened if the world stopped here and we try and predict what would have happened in the next few quarters. Between each tick is a quarter. That's the granularity at which the Fed measures and reports these numbers. And the blue is what happened to us as we went into the pandemic and came out of it, right? We kind of caught up and then we again are slipping through. And that's all the agony that's in the economy right now. But you don't have to take what I tell you here at face value. You could take that conversation that this chart's having with you, the conversation that I had with the data as I produce this chart, and go to that next level. And let me go and show you how that works in DataChat. Attached with that, I just clicked on a button in that chart, which is show me this work. So it's like you've been in school and your math teacher always probably told you, show your work. In DataChat, every artifact comes attached with this proof of work, the show work, how did I get here? Why is that powerful? First, it allows you to, all your data wrangling, whether, this part was a SQL query, this was a machine learning time series query, this was another SQL query. It's all in this simple form. If you had to write this code in SQL plus Python and some other language, it would probably have been hundreds of thousands of lines of code. So first, it's really compact. It's all in DataChat English, so I know what happened here. I loaded data from a URL. I know what that URL is. Then I only kept the rows where the data is between 1990 and 2019. Then I fed that into a time series model. And then I constructed everything else. And I don't have to just read it. I can actually play with it. It's live and active. So I can put a breakpoint there and say, hey, run this. As you can see, this is running live. So that proof of work is actually a live code, if you want to think of it as that. It's actually code in this innately readable DataChat English language. The conversation is the code. The code is the conversation, right? This is the conversation I had with the data. And when I shared with you, you can go through this step by step. And you could even do things like saying, hey, you know what? This data over here, I really want to go change that to 2000, or I want to go change that to 1980. I want to really go back a little bit in time and feed that into the model. And I really want to go and see 20 years worth of data in what you present, right? And I can do that, and I'll just go run it. And I'm just going to let it run. And as it runs, it's going to show its work. This is the high-level description of the work. This is the actual results that is getting produced one step at a time. This is a live session it is running. It's running a bunch of time series prediction models on this data set, now going back to 1980 and saying what would have happened if the economy, if you had taken just the data till 2019 before the pandemic and projected out, and then overlaying that, concatenating that predicted time series data with the actual data that happened, right? So those are all the steps that is happening, and I'm just going to let it play, right? So let's invoke the prediction stuff. AutoML, as we saw, that we use for regression in analyzing that restaurants data is one part of machine learning algorithms. We have a very rich type of machine learning algorithms, including time series analysis, which is what is happening over here with that prediction component. As you can see, I'm getting a different chart, right? So if I go back, what happened? This is now the prediction. This is the prediction if I said, and I can pop that up. This is the prediction if I said, I'm going to go back to 1980, apply a time series prediction to see what would have happened. See, previously I was stopping right here and doing the prediction. That had a certain curve that was a little bit more exaggerated. But if I wanted to go back a little bit more, I get a different curve. And then if I overlay that, which I do in this 10th step up over here, I get a very different interpretation of what's going on. I get an interpretation saying, hey, this is what the world should have looked like if I build a model based going all the way to 1980, and this is really what's happening. So by this, we are doing okay. So the key point here is that we've taken output that we get from deep data analytics, the created artifacts, for granted. We never attach proof of work to that. And as you can see, the same data can sing two different stories. And the science part of data science says, don't just show me what you're trying to tell me, but show me what you did, because I could go change it. I might go and change this and say, no, I want to go back and just go back to 2010, because maybe the new economy that we think of is really what happened in that last run, because things really changed, and I could show my work. I could play around with that model. So I can take stuff that I've created, even something sophisticated like this, share it with you. By virtue of me sharing with you, you have not just my final result, that artifact, that chart or a report or the full insights board, but the proof of work. And you could go and take your own data journey, continue that conversation I started with the data, and you could go and say, what happens if I do this? And you could share that back with me. So at the end of the day, interrogating data is really looking at it from the perspective of the different steps that you use to create that final answer. And that's what we do in DataChat. We want you to have that completeness of that toolbox in an easy to use and in an interactive fashion. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the home screen over here. Just wanted to mention that you can easily connect to databases and stuff like that. There are a bunch of things that I'm not going to talk about today, but things that are coming as previews. So here's a retail data set in which there are a whole bunch of transactions. This is from, this is a real retail data set. It's a little bit dated, so the customer allowed us to go and share that with us in demos. It's been anonymized, but this is real transaction data set from a retailer. There are rich things that you can do with it. For example, you can go through this define layer and define certain types of expressions. And here, in the interest of time, I'm just going to show you what's been defined is an expression here that says revenue is the total of the order total, right? So this order total component over here, shipping overhead is calculated in a certain way. And that quarter is defined as the date from the last purchase. Here's the first operating year and stuff like that. And I can have a conversation with this data where I might say, hey, visualize for me what happened with the shipping overhead by the year, and just show me what that looks like. And so here, machine learning, visualization, all of that is coming in with this little semantic layer I defined to say, here's the shipping overhead. For this company, it was really high in 2010 and then started to flatten out a little bit. Bad year in 2013, if you care about that being low, and then being on trend again a little bit further down. I can go and search for a little bit deeper version of this to say, what does that look like if I break it down by year and month? And again, the system is doing all the hard work for you as you go search for your answer with that little layer that you just defined on that. Right? So as you can see, the shipping overhead was really high in December of 2010. And then got better as it came across, except, we've got some year, 1 month over here, dark blue is better, was amazing. And then we have a little bit of a mixed trend in there. We wanted to remove the red stuff over here, 2010, because it was the start year in which this retailer started. There's a phrase that is already defined in here, and I can say excluding the first operating year. So essentially, you can define a semantic layer on top of DataChat that you can share with your colleagues, share with your future self, and interrogate this data, have this conversation with your data in this rich visual way, right? So I took away 2010, and here I have this component here. Everything that you do in DataChat can be attached with the proof of work. So even if this piece here, which had that semantic layer, I want to go and share it with someone else, I just pasted it into that same insights board that we've created. So insights board could have pictures that come from anywhere, right? And as you can see, this has pictures that came in from the shipping overhead area, and you can go and do all kinds of fun stuff with that. You can, for example, here I can look at the proof of work that came with it, and that tells me, oh, it loaded from there. Here's the semantic, just the relevant portion of the semantic layer as to how shipping overhead percentage was defined, what is first overhead, and gives you that trimmed down recipe of exactly how did I produce this chart. And so my proof of work is attached, and you can continue that conversation at that next level. So in this last part that I just showed you is that you can take your conversation, you can create your conversational language, as you just saw with these phrases that were defined, and you can continue that, and you can share that with others, and they could continue that conversation too. Okay, so with that, I'm going to start to wrap up over here, and then go back for a few minutes to the slide so that I can also tell you how you can get your free DataChat access. But let me quickly summarize what we just saw in this demo. a quick example, by the way, marketing wanted me to put this up. We are working with companies, small, medium, and large. We, as you saw in the earlier part, we just started out a couple of years ago building out the platform. So in this early stage, but we're super excited, as you can see, with the platform that we have. We're rolling it out so that users can get access to it just directly in a fully hosted environment. But we also have some big companies that are using us. And here is a large social media company. Of course, they have tons of data scientists. But when the business users want to self-serve that data science process, and many of the users here are programmers, right? They can do a little bit in Python and they can cook their notebooks. But once you get to some of the deeper type of stuff, in this case, the analysts needed to look at 10 years worth of phone usage and repair data to find root causes for why do some set of devices fail early, and use that to go and figure out how to make the future purchases meet ESG goals, like what's a reasonable length of device that we should expect, and make informed buy versus lease decisions. So if the devices fail a lot more based upon the first failure event that happens, if that first failure happens in the lease period, the leaser, the vendor, is responsible for fixing that device. Is that better versus us buying it? Because if we buy it, then we are responsible for the repair. So it helps them do all of that stuff. Most of the people over there have a little bit of Python programming experience, but to get to this level of deep data science stuff, it's just so much natural and easier and faster and to do in DataChat. So our value is we are built on first principles to give you that complete tool belt to explore, to build, to visualize, to collaborate. Everything's powered by machine learning at each of these steps. So it's like machine learning is not explicit, it's implicit in everything that we do, so your life is easier. Key aspect is everything we do. We take the science part of data science seriously. It's transparent and reproducible. Everything comes with a proof of work, and as you saw, that's powerful because I can capture the conversation I had with my data, even if it's in this visual environment, attach that proof of work, and you could continue that conversation with the data in your own way. We connect to a rich set of databases. Here are the ones we connect to presently, and we are always working on increasing the databases that we can directly connect to. And if you want to try it, here is the link that has also been posted, tinyurl.com, FourthBrain. Want to keep it really easy. Tiny URL, FourthBrain will take you to the form. And at the bottom is the checkbox that says, if you're interested in the beta access to the Python API, check that box. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a preview of what we are working on for people who want to use DataChat from Python notebooks. So far, everything I showed you is like, you do that in DataChat in a web app, connect your database to DataChat in a SaaS platform. But we are working on this where we want to take some of our high-level skills like visualize and the machine learning piece, the AutoML piece, and allow you to simply say something like import, write these few lines of code here in a notebook where you're importing a DataChat library, starting up a session with us, and then basically saying, give me the visualization recommendations for this data set that I've pulled in. And that'll show up in an iframe in your notebook. So if you wanted to stay in your Python land, but wanted to do some of these things a little bit faster, a little bit more in a less frustrating way, use the power of what we have in a platform, but not leave your notebook, we are working on that. So if you're interested, as you sign up, the first 100 users, if you are interested in that, please don't forget to check that box to say you're interested in the beta access. And when we are ready with that, we will give you access to that so you can try that and hopefully give us feedback. So with that, I didn't want to go beyond the time, so I'm going to pause and see if I have time for a few questions. I'll leave this on the screen up in the meanwhile. Greg.
Thank you so much, Jignesh. I really loved to see the capabilities of your platform today. It can do so much. It's a lot to take in. And I want to go ahead and kick off the Q&A here with a question from Anthony. You said to get to this level of deep data science stuff, it's so much easier and more natural to do it in DataChat. And Anthony's kind of interested in what he should be learning now these days. Anthony asks, what materials channels do I need to become fully data science proficient, considering I never went to any CS school? What are you telling University of Wisconsin students today?
That is an excellent question. And my answer to that is it is not as important as you think it is to learn a specific language, because languages change. What is really important is to learn how to solve a problem, how to break down a complex problem into different pieces. So what's my tool set? I need to go and wrangle this column, and that is a computational method that allows me to bin a continuous variable into smaller ranges. So it's the principles of data manipulation at that high level, and that problem-solving skill is way more important as a muscle to build than learning a specific tool. Because you can see DataChat does a lot that you would probably do in Python. And in all humility, at some point, 10 years from now, it's gonna maybe something better than DataChat that'll do something even more different. But what won't go away is, what are we humans better at? Humans are better at certain types of problem solving. So learning how to look at a problem, break it down into steps, not be afraid to try and back out from it. That problem solving skill is the important problem. Puzzle solving, problem solving. So algorithms are important. Don't forget to take an algorithms class. Don't forget to take a data structures class. The fundamental principles that go into breaking down data and understanding its fundamental properties. Don't forget to take a stats class, because that's how you get a deeper understanding of how we break down. Learning how to do Python programming or SQL, fine, that's important to put on your CV, but is that the long-term foundational stuff? The long-term foundation is the foundational components.
Love it. Yeah, that's really resonating with me. And, it reminds me of Stephen Wolfram's computational thinking, and your computational intelligence fits right in with your answer here. Sort of make sure that you have that uniquely human computational intelligence, and then pick the tool off the shelf that is.
Don't try to beat the machine. It's going to beat you, right? Do what the machine can
do. Yeah. So I want to just double click in on sort of one more thing that kind of, seems to be coming up a lot with our audience in particular. There's a lot of this low code, no code tool stuff out there, and it's proliferating faster and faster all the time. What do you see happening, amongst the different job titles out there? And, particularly we're working a lot with data analysts, data scientists, machine learning engineers, and now more and more today, ML ops engineers. It seems like this has really been primarily an insights focused data analyst tool, but this Python API really brings it into the realm of being able to really be used by anyone. Is there sort of a target user for this tool? Or if someone was starting a new job with a new job title, would you encourage them to pick up a tool like DataChat right away?
Yeah, that's a great question again. So the answer has two parts to it. One is where we are right now. Where we are right now is we definitely appeal a lot more to that citizen data scientist who's a 1-star, 2-star, just starting out in the Python programming sense. We'll get them to that 5-star level in no time. We did an interesting study where we took 16 people from the data science program. These are people who have 6 years of programming experience to get a graduate master's degree in data science. And we split that one into 2 cohorts, give them a Kaggle competition to solve in DataChat versus in Python notebook. And there was a 10x improvement in the mundane type of exploration, initial model building, those types of pieces that you have to do. So even for the expert, we think we have something to offer. That's where we are trying to get to the Python API. We want to be in a place relatively soon where we say, regardless of your data skill, can we take your innate human intelligence component and elevate that to that next level that you wouldn't get to easier? And if you want to go and cook a 7-layer neural network for the model that you want, you shouldn't use DataChat for that, but you should use DataChat for the exploration and understanding and the wrangling until you get to the point where you say, I need to build a 7-layer neural network. And that's what we're trying to get with the Python API. We are not there, but we are there. So effectively, in a nutshell, what we're trying to say is elevate everyone, rising tide for everyone, certainly focused on the citizen data science end right now, where the skill gap is critical, where the need we think is more critical. That's why we pick that as a spot to start.
Yeah. Well, I really look forward to more import DataChat action in the future as your product and your community grows. And with that, I want to go ahead and thank our audience for all of the great questions. Thank you again, Dr. Patel, for joining us and giving us a glimpse into what the future of low code and no code AI might just look like and even looks like today. FourthBrain is grateful for the opportunity to showcase DataChat's conversational intelligence capabilities in this event. So this brings us to the end of today's event. We hope that you've enjoyed your time with us and that you've got a few lessons learned to take with you about how low-code solutions like DataChat that leverage natural language in unique ways to solve business problems can be used on your next ML project. Our next event will be in collaboration with deeplearning.ai entitled Branching Out of the Notebook, ML Application Development with GitHub, a follow-on event to the live demo that we ran in September called Beyond Jupyter Notebooks, ML Ops Environment Setup and First Deployment. So if you're interested in how to do branch development, work with pull requests, see an example of an end-to-end ML Ops diffusion model deployment, and see how Git workflows integrate with VS Code development environments, look out for the registration link that will be coming out very soon on social media. And of course, check out the new and improved FourthBrain.ai website. Details on our upcoming MLE, our machine learning engineering, and ML Ops, machine learning operations course offerings are always there, as well as information on our corporate training and custom curriculum offerings. Our next 16-week MLE program launches December the 3rd. That's it for today. We look forward to continuing to bring you more live demo events delivered by experts soon, as we believe it's one of the best ways to teach and learn together. Feel free to reach out to me directly at greg@fourthbrain.ai if there are any events that you'd love to see. And of course, feel free to reach out to Jignesh directly if you have any questions about DataChat. Please leave a comment, like, and subscribe. Thank you for attending today's event. We'll see you next time. Till then, keep learning.